Bonjour. And that's all I can say in French. I was actually, do you guys mind if I take a picture of you? It's been a very, yeah. Okay, pretend you love IntelliJ. It's been a very stressful last 5 minutes. My laptop just fell down on the floor for the first time ever in 15 years. So let's hope it works. If it does, I love Apple, especially things made in China. Well, it is made in China. Okay, so welcome to this session on IntelliJ. Does anybody know why I'm going to do 42 tips? Yes, exactly. I'm not actually going to do 42 tips. Because the thing about tips is that it's very relative. If you know it, then it's not a tip. If you don't know it, it's a tip. So I've got about, if we count every single thing that I'm going to do, I think there's over 100 things, right? Now, those might not be tips, okay? So I normally in these sessions, I set the bar for myself very low, which is basically, as long as you walk away knowing 3 things, I'm happy with that. Are you happy with that? Oh, God. You're very easy to please. That's brilliant. Okay. So how many of you here actually use IntelliJ? Wow. I should have asked it in reverse. How many people use Eclipse? How many people? No, don't boo them. Boo. How many people use NetBeans? And are brave enough to put up their hand? Okay. So I'm going to show you IntelliJ. Hopefully, after this session, those that are using IntelliJ won't stop. Okay? I don't care about those that are using Eclipse, if they switch or not, but at least those that are using IntelliJ won't stop. I'm using the Mac OS 10.5 Plus keyboard mapping. Actually, I'm not. I'm using my own. But it's kind of similar to the 10.5 OS X. How many are running on Windows? Okay. How many are running on Mac? Any Linux users? Wow. That is awesome. How's the font rendering in Linux? No, I'm not going to ask that. So, anytime I say Command O, you substitute that for Command N. And that only works for that. Okay? Are you awake? Yes, I know. Okay. So, let's start. Command O. Now, this is Command N. Ignore the on-screen shortcuts. It's a bug. So it would probably be better if I switched it off. But I just press Command O and it shows Command N. It's the same thing. It's showing the IntelliJ keyboard mapping. And everybody knows this, right? This goes to a type. So if I write operation timeout, it goes to operation timeout. Okay? Now, did you know that you can also write ORC? And that goes to operation reference count, okay? And much the same way, you have the same thing with Shift Command O. If I write, for example, scheduler, that's going to scheduler. That's going to go to the scheduler class, and I've selected it to. You can click it once, twice, like this, to activate that dashboard so that it goes to non-included types in the project as well. Okay? So Command O goes to the type, Shift Command O goes to the actual file, right? Now, you can also press Command 1 and go to the navigation in the project structure window, okay? And from here, I can also go to things. So I could write, for example, sample app, and that takes me to sample app. And in fact, on all of the project windows, on all of the windows in IntelliJ, you can start to type, and it will go to that thing. There is an issue right now that if you don't have some things expanded, it might not find it. Well, it's not a might, it won't find it. But if it's not expanded, then it will find it. So Android, there you go. And everything comes with Android. Now, going back to this Command O, do you know that you can use patterns? So you could do, for example, star, I don't know, subscription, and it will show me anything that starts, that ends with subscription or has the word subscription in it. What does this do? Let's go, for example, to here, and I'll do ORC :40. What does that do? Who knows that? Right, so that's quite a lot of you that have walked away with one new tip. That goes to line 40 on the specific class, okay? So if you put the line number with the colon, it goes to that. We also have Alt-Command-O or Alt-Command-N, which goes to any symbol. So if I type, for example, sum float, that's going to take me to any symbol across the entire solution. The problem with that is that I could have many things that are called sum float or many things that are called index, etc. So what you can do is you can use namespace filtering to filter it out. So you can see here that I have operation sum test. If I want to go to operation sum test, what I can do is write OST and then sum float, and then that will take me down to only operation sum test sum float. Did you know that? That's 2. We're going good, right? This is good, right? We've only just started and you got 2 things that you didn't know. Right. Are you normally this quiet in France, or are you more interactive? I had that coming, didn't I? Is there anyone that is not French here? Okay. Anyone that is Spanish? Oh, well, we're from the same place then. So, right. So, what else? Bar. If I do that in the file name, if I write, for example, enter file name, and let's say, for example, RX, that's going to take me to folders, right? So I can start going to folders with the R, and so that will take us to folders. There's one thing that we added. How many of you using IntelliJ 13? Right, there's one thing that we added, that if you hit double shift twice, you get search everywhere. Okay, and that literally means everywhere. It means in settings, absolutely everywhere. So I could look for the same thing here. I can say, for example, operation, timeout, etc., and that takes me to the class. So you don't have to make that distinction between type, file, etc. You can just search everywhere. It's a little bit slower, obviously, but hopefully that will speed up at some point in time. Okay, so command 7, project structure. That also allows me to actually, let's go back to some other file. I'll show these later. So if I go to command 7 and get the project structure, again here I can look at something, I can write view, and that will take me to view. Okay. How many know that if you type new or CTOR in that project structure, in that file structure, it takes you to the constructor in the class? How many of you knew that? Well, because it doesn't, but it would be a really good feature, right? So I've logged it because in ReSharper, which is our tool for Visual Studio, it does do that. So I'm doing more IntelliJ now, and they're harassing me like, you want all the features that you have in ReSharper? I'm like, damn right I do. So instead of having this command 7, you can also invoke that and have it as a pop-up, right? So if you want to go to a file member quickly, you can just press Command F12 and then just say, for example, view, and go directly to that member. Okay, so you don't have to have that docked. Okay, so what else? This navigation bar at the top, how many of you use that? Right? You should switch it off. Normally hipsters switch that off. I'll tell you why later. So that's switched off. If it's switched off, I can get it back. I can pop it up anywhere, right? So you see that I just pressed Function Alt left, and that little arrow that goes like that, that's like a weird left kind of thing. So that brings me back the navigation bar, and I can scroll down on this, and I can actually like type here. So let's go, for example, to something bigger, and I can say operation. And I can also filter on that. And did you know that you can, in fact, invoke the new menu on that and get it inside the context of where you are right now? So if you're navigating to a folder, for example, you press Command New, and inside there it will create the file, etc. Okay? Is it good? Yes. Don't show any excitement. Just keep quiet. Keep as dull as you are now. You know, like, you've heard about the Swedes, right? Anyone from Sweden? No. Right. In Sweden, as someone was saying, you actually, when you're speaking to an audience, you have to check once in a while if they're still alive by touching their pulse, right? So try and not be like the Swedes. I mean, I love the Swedes, but not in their way of reacting to audiences. Command E takes you to recent files, right? You're all aware of Command E takes you to recent files, and you can also go to all of the different windows. Shift Command E takes me to the recent edited files, and here I can also, in anything, I can always type and go directly to what I want. So that's one of the reasons I say, like, don't have all those tabs open. Because if you're switching back and forth, you can always do it with recent files. You don't need to have all of those tabs taking up those spaces. Okay. Also, if you want to do quick switching, you can just press the Control-Tab button to do quick switching. Okay. By the way, if you want, if you really be nice to me when you evaluate this, I will then give you a list out of all of these tips. Okay. Okay. Yes, there you go. So, yes. Commando, time, type, operation, time. Which one do I have here? Time, operation, time. Okay. So, operation timeout, timeout. Okay. And now here I have, for example, on subscribe, and I have some other things, like, for instance, where is that? Subscribe. Serial subscription. Here I can, like, you know, press Command B, go and see the actual declaration, right? So I can actually navigate to that declaration. Now, sometimes you don't want to navigate to the actual declaration. All you want to do is just see it in place. So what you can do is press Command Y, and that will bring it out in place, okay? And you can just see it there and then and not have to navigate to it. And when you want to cancel, you just cancel. Much like that with the methods, you don't need to actually see anything. You can do Command P to get some information about the parameters when you're creating parameters, etc. And let's go, for example, which one do I need to find? Okay, let's go to Command 12 is subscribe, is unsubscribe. Where am I? Unsubscribe. Okay, so Command B takes me to the Command U is going to take me to the interface declaration. From here, I can see all of the different implementations using Alt-Command-B, okay, and navigate to each of these as well, okay? And also, what I was saying, that you can navigate back and forth with the recent files and recent edits, you can also navigate back and forth using the command and left and right square brackets kind of thing. Okay, any questions? No? Okay, great, let's continue. So, no, I'm serious. If you have any questions, let me know. Shift Command 7. What that does is highlight the usages in a specific file. Okay? So you can see that I have here serial subscription. Let's go actually back to some other file. And I can do, for instance, serial subscription. And it will highlight all of the usages in that file, right? Now, if we go over to, no, not the big ass class. Do we have a customer? No, we can do it on rate provider, right? Sort of. Where's my little class that I was going to show you some stuff with? It's gone. It's dead. It died. Hold on. No, it should be here. There you go. Okay, so do something. What happens if I do the same on the return? It shows me all the exit points of the code, okay? And if you do it on the throw, who can guess what that does? Shows you all the exit, all the places where the method throws exception. Okay, good. Any questions? Nothing? Oh, let me drink some water. Come on. How many of you have now, to date, picked up 3 tips? Or more? Has anybody not learned anything new so far? Okay, I'll put your hand down. Okay, so one of the things that we always get from hipsters, I call JavaScript developers hipsters. No, those are Ruby on Rails developers. Yes. Okay. So one of the things that we always get from hipsters is the ability of, like, you know, your IDEs are very, very heavyweight because they've got all of these tool windows and everything like that, and it's a pain, and just give me a blank screen to work on, right? Shift Command F12. There's your blank screen. Okay? And of course, you can go into full mode as well if you want with Mac OS, but Shift-Command F12 is going to get rid of everything that you have open in one keyboard shortcut. Now, if you notice here, I have a little box, right? And if I click it, it will bring up all my little tabs, right? So that is the ability to go into full screen mode, but have those tabs and those windows available around the edges. If you switch it off, you can still figure out what number it is and actually click on them, etc., is by double-clicking Command, and you see that it shows it up, right? And then I can select the number, or I can just select the one and have that appear, okay? So very useful if you want to do like full-screen editing. If you want to take it one step more, there's another feature that we recently implemented, which is called presentation mode. So what you can do is press Shift-Control-P, and that will take you to presentation mode, okay? Why is it called presentation mode? Because the font goes really, really big, right? And that's basically just all I have is an editor, nothing else. And if I open up the window, I get a very, very big window. Idea is, it's kind of like if you're doing presentations, etc., but you can actually use it for like getting in the zone, if you will, right? When you just want to write code. And not have Hacker News or TweetDeck open at the same time. So you can come out of that, and obviously you can adjust the font sizes for that. You can just write presentation mode and get the presentation. By the way, did you know that you can actually search for things in settings as opposed to actually navigating through each menu item and trying to figure out where things are? You just type what you want to look for. So if you want to type something, you type something. Okay? So one other thing that you can do with the editor is, who can tell me? Change what? Changes list? No. You can actually externalize it. So you press Shift F4 and you take that out, and you can drag it onto another window, right? I would do that, but I don't have two screens. How many of you use a mouse? Stop it. Someone came to me at the booth and said, how do I use IntelliJ after using Eclipse for so many years? Two advices. One, don't use the same Eclipse keyboard bindings. Get into the new way of doing things, because a lot of times people switch to Eclipse keyboard bindings and they're like, why doesn't this feature work or exist in IntelliJ? No, because we do things differently to Eclipse, right? The second thing is, don't use a mouse. Now, I'm using a mouse here, but don't use me as an example. And I'm not using a mouse, I'm using a kind of like a touchpad, which is a little bit different. But don't take me as an example, right? But what I always do when I'm teaching ReSharper as well is like unplug the mouse and just focus on the keyboard. And the first couple of times you start to have to figure out where things are coming, where you keep going to the menu entry, etc. But eventually it will pick up, because we are humans, we are not really monkeys, and we can learn new things, right? And that's another thing that people say to me, like, I'm so used to my own tool and my own keyboard shortcuts, I can't possibly learn something new. What? When it comes to keyboard shortcuts, do you have a limited amount of memory that you suddenly don't have when it comes to languages or frameworks or something else? So you can learn. And by the way, talking about not using the mouse, if I use the Shift command, and it should work, selecting the window, I can adjust the size of the window as well. Now, if you really want to have fun, what you can do is install IDEA Vim, right? Where is it? Plugins. Okay, I promise you there's an IDEA Vim. Where is it? Oh, okay. Hold on. Install JetBrains plugin. Vim. I don't have it installed. IDEA Vim. Okay, if you install that, you'll never be able to exit IntelliJ, just like you can never exit Vim once you enter it. So how many of you use Vim? Okay, I love Vim. No, seriously, I do. Have you seen that Twitter joke that was going around? It said, I installed Vim 2 years ago and I still haven't figured out how to exit it. So I have Vim on the other machine. So can you go away, your little desktop thing? Right, okay, so if you really want to have fun, you can also install Vim. I don't know how well it works inside IntelliJ. People they say it's great, other people say, so it kind of like make your own opinion of things, okay? If I take some code, I can just press Command Point and fold it up and down, right? And I'll do that until you get tired of seeing it. What you can also do is expand selection and shrink selection. So if you want to select a word, instead of double-clicking it, if you want to select a method, instead of dragging and like the mouse, etc., like that, just put your cursor on it and press Alt, up, 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 up. That's why it's called expand selection, because every time you do it, it expands the selection. Some things we name appropriately. And if you do it down, well, it goes down. Now, those of you that are using IntelliJ default keyboard mapping, that would be the equivalent of Control W, right? If we do Control W or Command W in OS X, it closes the window. So that's why it's been revamped. Now, if I do it here, it kind of has a different effect, right? It selects the mouse, the whole function in 2 goes, right? So it's not just selecting line by line, okay? If I do it here, it also selects the block in 2 goes, okay? So it's a little bit smarter than just copying, selecting text. Here's one that I see a lot of people do. I can come here and I can write some code. So for example, let's create a method. And you've got to forgive me, I hate Java. So whatever. And then you do something like that, okay? How many of you write code like that? Okay, that's interesting. How do other people write code? It depends, right? The perfect example, the perfect response of any good consultant. Well, it depends. So it depends. It depends. And what you can do is you can press Shift Command Enter to complete statement. Did you know about that? Yes. So that works anywhere. If I do, for example, int something, Shift Command Enter, it will complete it with a semicolon. As you saw before, if I just write the beginning of a function, it will complete the function. If I write it in an if branch, it will complete the if branch. In a do, etc., it will complete the statement. So get used to that. That's Control Shift Enter for your Windows users or Linux users. For the Mac ones, is Shift Command Enter. Right. One thing that I sometimes do, I can like take this line and I can Command D, Command D, Command D to duplicate it, and then I can, for example, cut this, and I'm like, oops! Instead of cutting the blank, the contents I wanted, I just press Control X on a blank line, and now I've lost the contents of my keyboard, my clipboard, so I have to press Control Z and do it over again. No, you don't. You press Shift Command V, and you get your clipboard, right? Which looks horrible because I've had 2 different silly things. If I copy something else, and then copy something else, and then show the clipboard, I get all of the clipboard history. Okay, did you know that? Nope. Yes. Well, I should stop asking that question because I get a mix of yes. Okay. What else? Let me go to. Let's go to main. Right. Do some stuff here. What is that? No, it's not a string. That's Kotlin. How many of you have heard of Kotlin? As in my T-shirt? Awesome. Brilliant. Great language. I kind of off the record, but I'm on the record now because they're recording me. So I can't really say this, so please edit this part out. But I kind of joke and I say, have you seen that book, the picture of the JavaScript book that's like a big JavaScript book? And then next to it, there's a small JavaScript book. And the small one is called JavaScript, the good parts. Have you ever seen that? Yeah? So take it as a joke. I say Kotlin. It's kind of like Scala, the good parts. No. So, I won't say that on the oh. Right. So one thing that they asked us for is the ability to do multi-cursors or multi-carets. How many of you like that? So I can do, I've got the cursor here, Shift, Alt, click, and I got 2 carets. Is that nice? No? Okay, fine, it's not nice. Here's the cool thing about it. Watch this. I bet you didn't know this. Bada bing. There you go. 3 carets. Now, I can also select something, okay? And I can select another one, and say, change this, all. I can also select the whole thing, which is Command G, and change it everywhere. If you use Sublime, which Sublime didn't invent, but if you use Sublime, you're probably used to that, and that was one of the #1 feature requests that we always used to get. Can we have multi-caret support? Okay? How many of you like that? Right. So the answer to the idea there is to not kind of use multi-caret support to do manual refactoring. First, check to see, because a lot of times people that use editors that aren't like project aware, a lot of times they use the multi-caret support to do manual refactorings. And a lot of those manual refactorings are automated in IDEs. So don't ever use it with the intention of doing manual refactorings. But kind of where places it makes sense that you need to use it. Let's go to customer class. By the way, how many Scala developers here? Okay, so I didn't offend too many. No. Okay, right. So if I want to copy, if I want to move some code around, I will select this code, and you see how badly I did that. I didn't use the expand selection, and I take that code, and I come down here, and I paste it. How many of you move code around like that? Be honest. And so of course you do, right? So what is the correct way of moving code around? Somebody tell me? Shift, Alt, and then move the cursors, right? And that's the way that you move code around. Okay? And I like to call this greedy brace in a sense. So if I have a couple of these here, I can come here and actually let's select this. So let's move this around, and it works the same with braces. So I can just take a brace and just move it down and include everything. It's kind of like greedy brace. It eats everything that's under it. Okay? Cool. So Alt Command L, what that does is reformat your code. So basically it cleans it up for you, makes it all nice, if it works, obviously. It normally works on Java classes. One of the, not everything that I show is supported in every single feature in IntelliJ for every single language. So this will clean up your class, and when you run this, you can select whether you want to optimize imports, where you want to select, if you want to run it for all the files in the directory, if you want to just run it on the file itself. And if you go to settings, so reformat code, see, it actually looks for everywhere. Oh, that didn't work, did it? Reformat, styles. So you can check the styles. Forget that. You didn't see anything. So if you go to code styles in Java, for instance, you can manage absolutely everything. The number of spaces that you want, whether you want to use tabs versus spaces, whether you want to use little dots, anything you can possibly think of, you can select there. And once you've selected, when you run it, that will clean it up exactly like that. Optimize imports. There's also a feature that I'm not sure people know about, is optimize imports. Where is it? Who tells me where it is? Come on. There is a feature that where's my feature? So there's a feature somewhere at some point in time that you'll find, which basically allows you to optimize auto import. Auto import. There you go. Auto import. Auto import. Auto import. Intentions. Auto import. Where am I? Inspections? You know? Okay, great. So, you know? Right, so I don't. Great. So what that does is allow you to as things aren't needed, it automatically removes the import. Okay? So let's go to some stuff around code generation. Now, everybody probably uses live templates, right? Right? Live templates? Yes? No? Show of hands, please. Stop being lazy. Show of hands. Live templates, which is basically the ability to create your own kind of macros and expanding code. So for example, PSMVM will create public static void main for me, and then I can put placeholders, and those placeholders are macros that can be expanded, they can be changed, they can do whatever. And that's live templates. You can also have file templates. Using the same concept, you can also have surround templates, which we'll see a little bit later. Okay? So live templates, I can just go ahead and create a file. How do you create a file? You press Control-N and you write Java class and you say, this one is for my dog. And what we would do here is do something like PSVM, and that would, in one click, generate for me the template. Okay? So, what does bourre mean in French? Butter, right? Also buffer reader. So if I do R equals new, and completion gives me what? It gives me basically pretty much anything that it could give me. Okay? So, there is another one which is control smart completion, which will basically give me things that I can instantiate, right? That make more sense in that context. So normal completion and smart completion, okay? Then I could do, for example, new file reader and some input.txt, and then I get that red. Why? Because I'm throwing a exception that's not marked, so I hit Alt-Enter, and I get the intention, generate the exception for me, etc. Okay, so try and use smart completion. It's more effective. Use templates when you can. Don't ever use templates to generate code that normally could be resolved in other ways. So for example, I'm very much against creating templates that do logging of errors or security checks or stuff like that, because those things you can solve in another way, which is not all at once, please. Aspect-oriented programming. Okay? So, let's do, for example, array list. No, let's do, oh, dear me, what did I just do? New array list of string, okay? And let's, now, forget that red box at the top. Do you know, if you do this the first time, the first couple of times, there it shows to you array list. And what you need to do is you have to hit Shift-Tab, go back and select list. Because normally you declare it as the interface, as the super type, not the actual type that you're creating. If you do that a couple of times, don't ask me how many times, but if you could do it a couple of times, IntelliJ says, okay, from now on I'm going to always use a list. Okay? So you can tab back. After a few times, it will remember that. So I can create my little, and I just messed it up there. Okay? So that's a little tip to go back and select the super type, and then from there, it will do it always the same. So, now, let's say, for example, I do strings. And normally I would do if strings is not null, then, you see, I did completion there. I should have done smart completion. Remove that, make that strings, right? How many of you do that? Whatever. It's always null, I don't care. That's not the point. But sometimes you start to write something and you're like, oops, that needs to be in an if block, in a not null or whatever. How many of you have seen postfix completion? So you do strings, and then you write not null, and it does it for you. It's quite sweet, right? Is there anything you like? So there's a whole bunch of postfix completions that we have. So there's null, there's not null, there's throw. So you could say, for example, illegal argument exception, throw, and what? Throw. Yeah. New illegal argument exception, throw. Okay? And that will do post. Yes? If you want what? Oh, you can't expand. So the question is, if you wanted something a little bit different, you can't expand it right now. But it would be very cool if you could pretty much declare your own template. I think you can't expand it. I'll check. And send me an email. I'll make sure. Yeah. What? Guava? I don't think it's only supported in Java right now. Okay. So yeah. So the question is it's I'll try and repeat that. The question is if it's supported in Guava. No, it's only right now. It's only supported in Java, but it can come. You never know. By the way, if you're ever running on a laptop and you don't like these red things, click on Power Save Mode, and it'll all go away. And what that does is also save your battery life. It doesn't run the whole kind of the whole inspections kind of thing. One other thing, when you are in a class, so for example, let's go to my big bad class over here, and I can hit Alt-N to just, for example, do a toString. Well, toString, and generate the toString. Let's go to another class that has it. Big mighty class. Okay. Let's hit this one. No, that's not going to work either. Anyway, you could do Alt-N and do toString to generate it. Instead of doing that, you could just also write toString and tab and expand it to do the toString. Okay, so you don't have to use the generate new menu. That's also more useful than having to remember the keyboard shortcut. Okay, how many of you do HTML? So you know about emit or emit or emit, emit. Emit. So I can come to emit and I can write, for example, table, something, hit tab, and that will expand it into table. I can do, for example, ul li times 10, and I can get 10 lists. Okay? It's kind of like the... So let's see, 35 minutes in, and I got the first kind of... Maybe I should have started with HTML. I thought you were all Java developers. So yes. Yes, great, wonderful. By the way, before I forget, I've bought 2 keyboard shortcuts over here with all the keyboard shortcuts. Come by the booth later and you can pick some up. Okay, next. Are we done with this? No, we're done. Okay, what else? Okay, right, cool. So I've got a little bit of time left. Let me just show you something with unit testing, which is actually pretty cool. If I go to my unit test here, so for example, I'm on this guy and I can press Alt-Enter and I can say create test, okay? But how many of you do TDD? Right, so when you do TDD, you can write, for example, test, and I'll write public void, another test, and then I can say, for example, my calc, I'm going to do this very slowly, and I'll write new my calc, right? And what you normally do now is you're going to take your mouse and you're going to click on that and you're going to hit Alt-Enter and you're going to create the class calc, right? Or what you're going to do is you're going to go and create the calc class. Now, there's an actual button here that says next highlight error, previous highlight error. And what you can do is press F2, right? Press F2. And it will take you to the next error. And there's a little option here, if you right-click on this, that says go to high priority problems only or go to next problem. So high priority is just errors. Next problem can be warnings, hints, etc. Talk about discoverability or lack of it in that little UI. But so if you click on go to high priority only, it will only go to the errors. Okay, so it's very useful for when you're doing kind of TDD. Okay? I am not going to really show you all of the refactoring stuff, but I will show you some things. Factory Java. You gotta love your factories. So, I mean, if you press Control-T, you get all of the refactoring, right? It makes sense, and there's a issue logged so that becomes context sensitive, in that it doesn't bring up all the refactorings if some of those refactorings aren't possible. But a lot of times you don't need to select everything to do that refactoring, right? So I can, for example, invoke extract variable on this, and I haven't selected the whole string. And that will extract function or extract variable on it without selecting the whole string. So that's something that I often see people do, which is selecting whole methods or stuff like that. You don't normally need to do that. It's context aware, so it figures out a little bit what exactly you're trying to do. If you do something different, so I select a refactoring to extract. In this case, it's saying, oh, you just want to extract that little guy, so it will extract that little one over there. Okay? So point of the tip here is try and, don't always focus on selecting things before having to refactor them. Okay? How many of you are on Java 8? Okay. How many of you are planning to go to Java 8? So with Java 8, we added a couple of features, which basically does refactoring for you, or teaches you kind of Java 8, which is like, for example, it takes this for loop and it says alt enter and replace with collect, and it will replace it with collect. So it kind of introduces you to new language features, which is pretty useful. It really is pretty useful. We have something like this when we were in ReSharper, which is link, kind of the subtle way of introducing functional paradigms into C#, and it really does help people learn new language concepts, right? Unfortunately, sometimes in C# people take it too far and they make these really, really long link statements that become completely unreadable. So in a later version of ReSharper, we added an undo, which wasn't Control-Z. I mean, it was just, reversing it out. Okay, so you've got some of those Java 8 features as well. Right. Inspections by name. Okay, if I say run inspections, and I'll show you that in a minute, I can say run inspections by name. You see that all of the inspections here are always running. You can switch on, switch off inspections. If you want to run a specific inspection, even though if it's turned off, you can just say invoke inspection by name, and then you can run the exception. For example, there's one that's called questionable name, right, which people don't like to switch on by default because it tells me like things that IntelliJ considers are questionable in terms of naming, right? Like naming a variable the same as the type, etc. Okay? And that gives me a chance to drink some water. I timed this. I've put in an extra delay so that I could drink the water. Now, how many of you have heard of structural search and replace? Okay, that's a very, very powerful feature. So you see, here I have the naming conventions, and it says, well, these are some bad examples of naming. So structural search and replace, what that allows me to do is, where am I? Okay, so for example, this is a very bad practice because all it's doing is just pretty much eating the exception, right? And what I can do is I can select this, right? And then, what did I do? And then say, do a structural search on this. And what it would do is basically look for anything that matches this pattern, right? But that pattern is constant. It's going to be always constant, right? And what you can do here is replace these with variables. So you can say, for example, statement, right? And then this is an empty block, and then you can come to this and say edit variables, and you can say statement, minimum count 1, unlimited number of elements, and value is read, all of these different value, properties that you can set to it. And you can even say that this has to be the base class exception, or you can say a specific exception, or whatever you want, and then hit find. And what that will do is find options of that inside the project. Okay? So this is a perfect example of how you can basically kind of extend IntelliJ with your own inspections and look for bad code, look for smelly code, right? And what you can also do is, if you go to settings, not settings, you go to inspections here, you can turn on the structural search inspection. You can switch that on. And then what happens is that you can add your own search or replace templates, right? So if I add a search template, what I can do is say, actually, this is pointless, so get rid of all this, right? Get rid of all that. and I hit, this doesn't support. I would hit OK, and then what that would do is highlight the error and give me the option to do Alt-Enter and replace it, right? And you can look at some templates that we have. So for example, method calls, operators, all of these different ones also serve as examples of how to do structural search and replace. It's a very powerful feature that basically, as I said, allows you to extend IntelliJ in the sense of looking for bad code, smelly code in your own projects and replacing them when you need. And you can do it on a global level. And also if you use a tool, our TeamCity tool, continuous integration, you can run these kind of things on the server as well. Okay? So, did you like that? Okay, did you know about that? Okay, good. So a couple of other things. You've seen that I keep doing Shift-Command-A. If there's one shortcut that you should remember in IntelliJ, it's Shift-Command-A, which basically means I don't have a clue on any of the shortcuts, and let me type the name of what I want to do. And then it will tell you the shortcut or execute the action. So if I write move, it will show me all of the different moves that I have, and I can hit enter to execute the action. So you see that I do run inspection by name, and then I hit that, and then I can run the inspection by name. It's basically looking for the action. Very useful. And then the first time you look for something, you remember the shortcut key, and you're good to go. Okay? So you can use that to do inspection by name. Control-K, well, there are no changes here, but let's go, for example, here. Control-K, well, Control-K, if I hit Control. Why is this giving me an issue? Something screwed up. Anyway, Command-K allows me to invoke the VCS tool, VCS menu, a short menu which allows me to do commit changes, etc. And it's a tiny little menu which gives you all of the different options. Now, if you want to, you can create your own tiny little menus. They're called quick lists. How many of you know of quick lists? So you can actually come here and say, I want to create a quick list that, for example, is custom Git or deployment, right? And I can assign it a key. I can enter, like you just say, new list, and then you can add all of the different menu entries that you want, assign it a keyboard shortcut, and you have your own little context menu and do anything you want from there. And talking about, to assign the actual key map, you just go to key maps, and then you look it up, for example, new list. I didn't save it. Deployment. So I can have the deployment, and here I can add a keyboard shortcut to it, add keyboard shortcut, add mouse shortcut, etc. Okay? How many of you do pair programming? Or often you go to a different machine that uses a different keyboard shortcut layout. That's a major pain. There's a way to get quick switch. So if you press Control and the tilde, you get the quick switch menu, and you can do switch key map and then type, for example, the keyboard mapping that you want and quickly switch to the different ones that you're using without having to go through the menu and all of those things. Okay? So let me just go back to mine and done. Right. So just to finish off, and this is more like for awareness, if you're doing any kind of JavaScript as well, you know, this is a polyglot IDE, so that it has support for Node.js, so you can see that it does requires. And to get that require option, what you need to do is execute an action which is setting up the node Node.js and npm. So you run this, and then it sets it up, and then you can select the scopes on the libraries, JavaScript libraries. You can select the scope of what IntelliSense, etc. you want for that project. And then you get all of the nice require.js support, well, the npm, AMD support for require.js, the node modules, and you get completion here. So I can complete that, and it has also AngularJS support and all of these things, okay? So it's completely polyglot in that sense, but you do need to activate sometimes the depending on the project and what you're doing, you need to activate some things, okay? So, and lastly, just to finish off, I could have told you this at the very beginning and then you wouldn't have had to stay at this session. 2 keyboard shortcuts that I said, Shift, Command A to run actions, and also if you go to Help, obviously you've got tips of the day, and they're very useful, but as developers we always switch them off, but they're very useful. But if you go to the productivity guide, how many of you know of that? What that is basically showing you everything that you're using in IntelliJ, right? So it says, for example, code completion. You used it 17 minutes ago. How many times have you used it? And you can look through all of the different features, all of the different tips that it offers. It explains to you what it does and when you used it last, etc. Okay? Done. One last thing, if you've noticed, my fonts are quite nice, and that is because you can go to, I'm using the 1.8, JDK 1.8. Now, it's not officially supported, but it kind of works. So what you can do is go to CD, Applications, IntelliJ, and then in Contents, Info, what is it? Info.plist. It should be info.plist. Contents, info. What the hell is going on? Oh, I'm using the wrong one. Hold on. IntelliJ IDEA. Anyway. No. Right. So there's a file called content/info.plist. Go in there where it says 1.6, change it to 1.7 or 1.8, and then it'll run on Java 1.7 or 1.8, and then you get the nicer looking fonts. Okay? Now, do we have 1 minute or not? Finished? Okay, I was going to raffle a couple of licenses, but I'll tell you what. We don't have time. But tomorrow, we'll raffle some licenses out at the booth. Okay? Thank you.